Sit, Coco, sit. Good dog. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Retail Archaeology. In this episode, we're going to take a look at something that I haven't been able to cover yet on this channel, and that is a closing grocery store. This is a Fry's Food and Drug store that's located in Mesa, Arizona. And if you're not familiar with Fry's Food and Drug, they're one of the supermarket chains owned by Kroger. So if you've got a Kroger or a Ralph's or a King Soopers or one of the other chains that they own near you, this store probably will look a little bit similar. I've covered a lot of different stores having closing sales on this channel. I've done videos on closing department stores like Macy's. I've done videos on malls that are closing, furniture stores, but I never had a chance to check out a grocery store liquidation sale. There have been a lot of grocery stores in the Phoenix area that have closed over the years, but I don't know that I've ever even heard of them announcing any sort of liquidation sale. I know that a few stores I went to, they had announced store closing dates, but the stores pretty much just operated like it was normal business up until that closing date, and then I'm assuming they just took everything out and moved it to other stores. The date on the banner on the front of this store said that the official closing date was November 22nd, and this was filmed a little over a week before that, and I was shocked how empty the store already was. The Hallmark cards seemed to be still pretty well stocked, but almost everything else in the store was gone, and what they did have they had taken and moved up to the front of the store, but I was still able to walk around the entire empty store and check everything out, which was really neat. I've never seen a grocery store like this before. It's kind of bizarre. I tend to do my grocery shopping later in the evening, so I am used to seeing grocery stores not have a lot of people in them, but seeing the shelves completely empty was a different experience. It made it feel like the supermarket level of the back rooms in here. While we explore this empty store, I should cover a little bit of history on Fry's. So Fry's was founded in 1954 by a guy named Donald Fry in El Sobrante, California. In 1960, Fry's expanded into the Phoenix market, and in 1972, Fry's was sold to Dillon's. And then in 1983, Dillon's was acquired by Kroger, which is how Fry's ended up being one of the stores that Kroger owns. You might be familiar with another store chain that used to exist using the name Fry's, and that's Fry's Electronics specifically. Fry's Electronics was never affiliated with the Fry's grocery store chain, however, they are kind of related. Fry's Electronics was founded in 1985 in California, and it was founded by Donald Fry's children. They started at Fry's Electronics using the proceeds from the sale of the Fry's grocery store chain to Dillon's. Fry's Electronics is now gone, however, this Fry's grocery store is not closing because the Fry's grocery store chain is in trouble or anything like that. The reason this is closing is because they actually built a brand new, giant Fry's marketplace store about 2 miles from this location. We will also take a look at that new store later on in this video. Personally, I have a little bit of history with Fry's as well. I worked at a Fry's grocery store location very similar to this one back when I was in high school. I worked as a courtesy clerk, but we really were just baggers at the registers. I don't have the shirt anymore from when I worked there, that's long gone, but I do still have my little plastic name tag. Seeing the store empty like this, but then still seeing stuff on the walls like freshness is a way of life, makes it feel even more weirdly liminal in here. I was surprised they were letting people walk around all throughout the empty store. They had obviously, like I said, shoved everything to the front of the store that they still had for sale, and they did have like wet floor signs in some of the aisles that seemed like they were trying to use as like barricades, but I just started walking around the whole store and nobody said anything. There really weren't a lot of employees either though, just 2 cashiers and a couple of other people just kind of buttoning down a few more things before the store closes. As I was walking around through the store, I was thinking to myself that there is no way they're actually going to stay open until their announced closing date because there's really just hardly anything left to sell. and I can't imagine that it would even be worth keeping the store open just to move the last few things. But I did drive by this location on November 21st, and it did appear that they were still open. For some reason, the aisles seem longer when there's nothing on the shelves. I'm kind of curious what will happen to this shopping center over time now that the grocery store is closing. It is on a very busy intersection, so maybe that'll help all the other businesses that are in this shopping center. Look and feel your best. It looks like the makeup and health and beauty stuff was also some of the last things to move in this store. I also wonder about what is going to end up going in this empty grocery store spot. It seems like the trend in the Phoenix area anyways for empty grocery stores is for them to be filled by either Goodwill locations or gyms like LA Fitness or Planet Fitness. These signs are something I often see in liquidation sales where it'll show like, if the aisle is 30% off, here's how you calculate what 30% off the price is, but having it for 50% off seems silly. I hope that that's not really necessary for a lot of people. Should be able to just divide the price by 2 and know how much it's going to cost. The dark empty produce area was particularly eerie. Yeah, even the coolers at the front of all the checkout stands are totally wiped out. It's so weird to see a grocery store look like this. Let's take a trip a couple of miles up the road and take a look at the brand new Fry's Marketplace that's replacing this location. So here's the Fry's Marketplace that replaced the grocery store we just took a look at. Fry's Marketplace is a concept for Fry's stores that are absolutely huge. Apparently they're known as a hypermarket, which I've never heard that term before, but basically it's a term for a really large big box store that focuses on groceries but also carries general merchandise and all kinds of other things like the outdoor patio furniture that we see here. Fry's Marketplace stores are usually between 80,000 and 105,000 square feet. The smaller locations are probably older Smitty's locations. That's where Fry's Marketplaces originally come from. Smitty's was a local store chain that we had in the Phoenix area for a lot of years, and they were kind of like a Walmart, except for they were more focused on groceries, but you could also buy electronics and kitchen appliances, all kinds of things like that there, although they were not this big. But Smitty's at one point merged with Smith's grocery stores, and then Smith's got together with Fred Meyer, and then Fred Meyer ended up being owned by Kroger through all kinds of acquisition hijinks, and that's where we get Fry's Marketplace. All of the old Smitty's locations that are still open are all also now branded Fry's Marketplace. The former Smitty's locations that are now Fry's Marketplace locations do feel more like a regular grocery store than this, though. This just feels like a giant hangar with a bunch of aisles in it. This is the beer and liquor and wine section, and this whole area is about the size of a whole liquor store. Seeing this monitor over here kind of reminded me of Smitty's a little bit. I remember when I was a kid, like over where they had the beer and wine and booze, there was a little like 13-inch TV with a built-in VCR that was playing a video of just how to make different mixed drinks and stuff. I thought this one might be interactive, but it's not a touchscreen, it's just a TV. This location's been open for a few months now, and where it's at, it's kind of still surrounded by a little bit of farmland, although that will all eventually get developed into housing developments and apartments and things like that. But after spending time in this location and some of the other newer Fry's Marketplace locations, I just don't see the point of having a store this big. The first location that we looked at, the older Fry's Food and Drug grocery store, I think was fine, the size of it. I don't see the point of closing that one to build this giant monstrosity just a couple of miles down the road. And also it's worth mentioning that less than 4 miles from this location, so not very far at all from this one, is another Fry's Marketplace location, one of these big giant stores that they built a few years before this one. a store like this makes the whole running to the grocery store for a few things real quick a much bigger pain in the butt. But they do know cheese, apparently. I am not going to complain about the large cheese selection. I love cheese. I just don't think a grocery store needs to be the size of an Amazon warehouse to have this kind of cheese selection. As big as the store is, I don't think the produce department was much bigger than at any other regularly sized grocery store. There's also a Starbucks in this location, just like many grocery stores have. It also has the weird little seating area that a lot of grocery stores have, although I don't care for this one. It just doesn't seem as weird as at other grocery stores. This is the toy aisle, which this is where this Fry's Marketplace differs from normal grocery stores. This is a lot more stuff than the grocery store toy aisle normally has. There was lots of Lego sets, Barbie stuff. But are people really buying this kind of stuff from here? I don't know. I mean, not a bad selection of Lego stuff at all. Toys aren't normally on my grocery list, though. I mean, maybe this is convenient if you're running to a kid's birthday party and you need to grab a gift real quick, but I feel like it would just be easier to run to Target. The prices were a little bit higher on this stuff, it seemed like, than they would be at Target. I guess that's just the convenience pricing, although I don't find this store convenient. Here's another section you wouldn't expect to see at your local grocery store. Here's a whole apparel department. And it is some of the most generic apparel that I've ever seen. It's weird to even see dressing rooms in a grocery store. That's not something you would normally see. When I was a kid, the Smitty's stores that I mentioned earlier in the video also had an apparel section, but it wasn't quite this big. Smitty's had a lot of different departments, but they were all on the smaller side. I wonder how much of this stuff they actually sell. The few times I've been in one of these big Fry's Marketplace stores, I've never seen anybody looking at the clothes. Like I said, it is just the most bland, vanilla stuff ever. After you get through the apparel department, you go into the health and beauty department and the pharmacy. So like here's the makeup and stuff, and that's some pretty good merchandising right there. I've always liked how bright the shelves are in the makeup displays. Now here's a big kitchen section. They even have a whole display for cast iron skillets there. They sell coffee machines in here. But again, everything seems slightly more expensive than it would be at somewhere like Target or another department store. I guess a store like this is just the product of decades of grocery store chains just merging and buying each other out, and you end up with concepts like this that, like I said, I just don't know make a whole lot of sense. If this place was my closest grocery store, I would probably drive a few miles out of my way to go to a more normal, smaller grocery store location, just because this place is kind of a headache. The fact that a grocery store carries HP printer cartridges is not one of the things that influences whether or not I'm going to shop there. That's just a weird thing to see at a grocery store. And then right near it is the dairy where they have the milk and everything. If this store represents the direction that grocery stores are going to take in the future, I gotta say, I don't like it. I don't even like this. Instead of the normal like quarter capsule machine toys that you would see at the front of the grocery store, they have these weird little miniature claw games. And you've got to buy tokens for them. instead of just using quarters. Yeah, that's gross. I hate that. I just want to put a quarter in a machine and twist the knob and get a sticky hand. They also have a Pokemon card machine here. I've seen a few of these around before, and it's interesting because every time that I see them, everything in them is marked as sold out. Kinda like everything in the first store location that we looked at in this video. But what are your thoughts on giant stores like this? Are you a fan of hypermarkets? God, I hate that term. Let me know down in the comments below. Me personally, I kinda hate this, and I'd rather shop at a smaller regular grocery store. That's where we're going to wrap up this episode, though. As always, everyone, thanks for watching. Want to see your name here? Head on over to patreon.com/retailarchaeology to find out how you can help support the channel. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out my video on a grocery store that was closed so it could be replaced by a big giant monstrosity. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and also make sure to follow at the social media links down there because that's the best way to keep up with what's going on with the Retail Archaeology channel.